Testing the audio. Testing the audio. Testing the audio. Testing the audio.
Abby, sorry.
Yeah. She's not here. She's not here. Good. I mean, Allison. I don't need it.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Darren Shady. All right, you know, whatever goes. You have 12 minutes. Anybody else have that question for time?
I'll take his time. I'm number 31. I'll be more than 3 minutes.
You have 12 minutes right now. Is that enough?
I'll still take his 3 minutes.
Okay.
If you can get it.
We'll put him.
Thank you.
Why don't you address? Yeah. You're number 31. You are.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else? So I can make sure I got it right. And double check. Forever. All right. If you guys see anybody come in late and they want to donate or speak, you might mention I'll try to back off. All right, so I was going to tell people that wanted to speak, try to sit towards the edge. There's a lot of folks that want to speak. So obviously you're going to have to let some people out, stuff like that. So anyway, all right, so we'll get going here. I'm going to go through the same stuff. So you hear last time, you've heard this already, but since I'm already going, I'll just keep going. If you're going to speak, this is your spot. Would you like to speak? Since I've got you on the spot, would you like to speak?
I can donate time.
Does anybody want time donated? Going once? Or want to know how much time you have? Sorry? 23. You have 6 minutes. Yeah. Your name, ma'am. What city? All right, thank you. All right, so if you're speaking, a little bit different than last time, you'll come up to this podium. That's a spring-loaded door right there. It pulls towards you. We didn't get time to bungee cord it open, so everybody will just have to open it every time. So anyway, thanks for being here. Board's looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We already covered the sign-up thing. I will be the one calling names. Apologize in advance. I will butcher somebody's name. And I'll be doing the timing. So as politely as I can, if you hit your time, I am going to say something to you. So just so you know, we will hold time tight here. Just in general, be respectful of all speakers. Last time went great. I think this will go just as good. So I'll call you as you signed in. Speakers, direct your comments to the board, please, and not to those in attendance. And yet again, the board, just like last time, plans to keep their interactions to a minimum to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. So they really want to hear what you have to say. 3 minutes per person that signed up. I think all of you know that, or you donated one way or the other. And I will let you know the time you have when I call your name, so you have an idea. If you have a handout or written information or anything like that, I'm gonna be sitting up here. Last time I handed it out for you, so you can hand it off, or if it's a lot of stuff, hand it to me. If it's something that's got to stand up, we'll figure out a way. I don't know how much people brought for props, but we'll figure it out one way or the other. And otherwise, I'll turn it over to you guys and get my timer started.
Jim, if you don't mind, real quickly, if anybody has a really hard of hearing, the courtroom has a hearing accessibility, a couple of those up here. So if anyone here is really has a hard time hearing. They have a couple of those. The speakers work pretty well, especially if someone's talking to the mic, but if somebody's having problems, just raise your hand. We'll bring it up.
Welcome.
First person signed up is, and if you don't want to speak, if you change your mind, just say I'll pass. So, or if I messed it up. Yeah. So, Dwight Mulch, and you have 3 minutes. Oh, you got to start. Sorry, John.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to state that we're here to take information and not doing any debating tonight on stuff with why and so forth. We want to write down the information we're getting so we can compile all that together, what your concerns are, so we can have this ordinance up to par. Thank you.
Dwight Mulch, 231 South 3rd Street, Burlington, Iowa, obviously a Des Moines County resident. So Mr. McCampbell, Mr. Carey, and Mr. Broker, I appreciate the holding of this meeting so that you listen to the citizens of Des Moines County. That goes for those who are in favor of the present ordinance regarding commercial wind energy conversion systems, aka large wind turbines, and those who would like you to change the county's ordinance to address various concerns. I, for one, and I think I speak for the majority of people in this county, are for the property rights that are afforded us through the 5th and the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. But as I boil this down in the current issue regarding the construction of wind turbines, I can see both sides of the issue. Those individuals for the current ordinance and those wanting to amend the current ordinance. The biggest issue for those wanting to change the ordinance regarding the construction of wind turbines is because of the height and the number of turbines, and they simply become a very, very intrusive object. These feelings is especially magnified when one does not gain any financial out of the construction of these turbines. And one might make the argument that wind turbines are good for the health of the earth, but I doubt that any of those that have sold easement rights would have done so had it not been for the financial gain and the potential for financial gain. So back to the property rights, and specifically the property rights of those who do not want a turbine on their property or feel encroached and affected by their fellow Des Moines County citizens who do not want them. At a previous meeting, you've heard various concerns about issues such as shadow flickering, noise, catastrophic failures of the turbine, of the blades, birds getting killed. But to me, the biggest issue, in my view, is that the property value around the turbine fields that will be affected in a very negative manner. It diminishes their value. I am here representing myself, my wife, but mostly my stepson and his wife. They currently live in Milwaukee area, but own 10 acres north of Danville. They have plans to retire and move to Des Moines County. That's where their roots are, and that's where they want to come back to when they retire. They want to build a house on this 10-acre property. An easement right has been sold by the neighbor next to them to potentially build a wind turbine or turbines near their property. My stepson and his wife see no financial gain from this turbine, but instead, just the opposite occurs. The value of their property will diminish. Not to mention the potential for exposure to some of the issues you've already heard and learned about that go along with wind turbines usage. And then there is the emotional side as well. While it's hard to put a factual or a tangible value, it is still nonetheless a real issue. Simply put, they were looking forward to retiring away from the commercialization of Milwaukee. They wanted to come back with their roots here in Des Moines sit and look at rolling solid fields and enjoy the peace and quiet and solitude that Des Moines County presents in country living. They don't want to be affected by a wind turbine field with its disruption of the beautiful landscape that exists in our county. And quite frankly, who wants to step out at nighttime and look at a bunch of red synchronized flashing lights? This is the property rights I'm concerned with and about. And I think many of us in attendance tonight are also concerned with. If it goes like it is, the ordinance is presently written, I'm afraid that the landscape and the intended usage of Des Moines County land is in a very negative light. As a business owner, I always ask my employees that when they come to me with a problem, they also come to me with a potential solution. I believe the 16 items that you have been presented with at an earlier meeting, and again, probably will be presented with tonight, are potential solutions for a valid issues. These potential solutions are the basis of a better ordinance that will help in controlling the intrusiveness that wind turbines are to the participants and to those who don't want to participate. Furthermore, it will help preserve what we know as the heritage of Des Moines County and the intended use of this country's dirt, this county's dirt. I thank you for listening. I trust you will do what's best for the citizens of Des Moines County. Thank you.
Brown Murray, 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Cheryl Murray and I live in Yarmouth, Iowa. We all have reasons for either supporting or opposing the wind turbines. I am here to voice my personal concerns. The parcels that are just next to my property on 3 of the 4 sides have all signed wind option and energy lease and easement agreements with the wind energy company. I am concerned of the effect on nature and wildlife and also the safety issues that have been brought to your attention during the last session, but these are not my only concerns. This energy company has been granted an easement agreement, which includes use of the private lane that is the only method I have to ingress and egress my property. It is a single lane. It does not allow for two-way traffic. I am questioning how this will affect my ability to come and go safely and without interference. The traffic flow and damage to the lane during the construction and the ongoing maintenance and dismantling of the turbine will directly affect my parcel's means of transportation. The current ordinance addresses a road use agreement for county roadways, not private lanes. The landowner has signed the agreement, which, if necessary, can only be enforced by legal means. If the landowner cannot or will not enforce this portion of the agreement, it directly affects me as well and my property. My residence does sit back a bit from the north property line. I do have outbuildings and a pond that sits closer to the property lines. I don't want a turbine placed close enough to my property, which would allow even the slightest possibility of damage to my home, land, outbuildings, or pond. I have the right to be safe in my home and anywhere else on my property. I am confident that all the non-participating property owners feel the same way. Blade failure, blade throw, and icing are just a few of the potential issues that need to be considered when determining the current setbacks from non-participating property lines. I am also concerned about the market property value. Studies have shown there's a negative impact on market value. Perception equals value. People moving to the country generally do not do so to escape the light and noise pollution of the city. These landowners that signed agreements have assented to the energy company, and I quote, a non-exclusive, perpetual, and irrevocable easement, right, and entitlement on, over, across, and under premises for any audio, visual, view, light, noise, vibration, air turbulence, wake, shadow, flicker, electromagnetic, television reception, ice, or other weather-created hazards, or other effect of any kind whatsoever resulting directly or indirectly from any operations conducting on premises or any adjacent properties next to it that are owned, leased, or otherwise used by the company or its affiliates for power generation. Okay. Well, I included an easement agreement in there so you can see that. So I just want to say I did not agree to or sign up for this. And most of us here probably didn't. And I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Doug Barkus. I have you for 3 minutes.
That should be clear. Doug Barkus, Barcus. And I live close to Yarmouth, and I live on a 150-year-old heritage farm. The family's been farming our ground since 1860. And I'm asking for a moratorium of 2 years so that we can get this ordinance amended. So many people knew nothing about this. I understand notices were posted in the paper. Nobody reads the paper anymore. I just heard about this like a month ago. The notices probably are in the classified ads at the back of the paper, and you got to look for the notices. And I don't even read the classifieds. I don't read the paper, but anyway, that's irrelevant. So we need time. Now that the word is getting out about what's going on, we need time to get this straightened out. I don't know how the board works. You guys all live in proper, correct? Your responsibility lies with the residents in Des Moines County, and that includes urban and rural, Yarmouth, where I live. So everybody needs to be represented. Have any of you been to a wind farm project? Have you visited one yet? You have? Okay. So you know how noisy they are. Would you guys want one 1,800 feet from your house?
They're not going to respond, so that's
Okay.
Well,
Well, I'm interested in, I want to speak to the setbacks. The current setback, I believe, is 1,800 feet from a non-participating occupied dwelling. The safety manuals that we've talked about for AES state that an employee that works for AES, if he's working on the tower and a storm or lightning has come up, they must evacuate 1 kilometer away from that tower to be safe. That's 3,280 feet. My house is less than 750 feet from all these leases that have been signed around me. So what am I supposed to do when lightning comes up? And I'm only 750 feet, from my property line. Now I understand it would have to be 1,800 feet, but that's still too close. I don't think 1,800 feet is a safe distance due to the issues of the noise, the infrasound, the vibration, the shadow flicker, and the other concerns to the livestock and birds. I believe that the Des Moines County CWAX is asking for a setback of 1 mile, but it needs to be at least 1 kilometer, at least 3,280 feet, at least.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next, I have David Hazen for 6 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm David Hazen, and my family owns ground in northwest corner of Des Moines County. First off, I would like to thank the Des Moines County Supervisors for having this work meeting. I would also like to convey to all of you my thoughts on wind turbines. This is interesting. First time I've done a presentation in 30 years. Wind turbines have evolved a great deal since the first utility-scaled wind turbine was installed in Waverly in 1993. Major changes have occurred to the blades. They have become longer so they can turn slow but generate more power per revolution. Serrations on the trailing edges of the blades inspired by owl feathers help reduce noise by altering the flow of the air. Tapered devices on or add-ons near the trailing edge can alter vortex formation, further reducing noise. And I will leave my notes with you so you can review the points. While older turbines produced around 100 dB, newer models can emit a maximum of 44 dB in open landscapes. Compared to other forms of energy generation, wind energy's overall impact on human health is considerably lower. In 2024, wind turbines in Iowa generated 63.4% of the state electricity. The percentage of Iowa's electricity generated by wind has steadily increased over the years, reflecting the state's commitment to renewable energy. Alliant Energy, Eastern Iowa Light and Power, Access Energy Mount Pleasant, New London Iowa Utility, and Danville Iowa Electric Utility are companies supplying electricity to Des Moines County. All of them buy some of their power off the Eastern Connection electricity grid. The amount of wind-generated electricity flowing into the grid increases every year. My family has leased ground near Scioto, Illinois, to the Cardinal Wind Project, starting back in 2017. During the construction of those turbines, the roads and intersections were greatly improved compared to what they were previously. All the improvements and upgrades were paid or implemented by the Cardinal Wind Project. Wind farms generate significant property tax revenue for local counties, which can be used to support essential services like schools, roads, and emergency services. For example, in Potawatomi County, wind turbines generated $2 million in property tax revenue in one fiscal year, with a significant portion going towards local schools and colleges. A wind turbine farm in Des Moines County could contribute up to $1 million via property taxes to schools in Des Moines County every year. This would definitely help offset loss in funds from other sources of revenue for schools. Landowners who lease their land for wind turbine placement receive payments, which can provide a significant source of income, especially in rural areas. The increased tax revenue from wind farms can be used to fund improvements to local infrastructures, such as roads, bridges, and public services. Wind farm construction, operation create jobs in manufacture, such as the Siemens plant at Fort Madison. They also create jobs in construction and maintenance. In some cases, wind farm revenue can help to reduce the overall tax burden on residents and businesses in a community. To wrap things up, the benefits of wind farm in Des Moines County far outweigh the disadvantages. Thank you, guys.
Niall Shade, I have you for 6 minutes.
SHADE, just like a lampshade. Niall Shade, Mediapolis, Iowa. I have two reports I want to talk to when I'm up here. The first one is titled Wind Turbine Syndrome. It is authored by 4 medical doctors. I can repeat their names if you want them. Wind turbine syndrome is a collection of symptoms that include dizziness, vertigo, disturbed sleep, tinnitus, irritability, headaches, vertigo, panic attacks, and lack of concentration and tachycardia. I have tinnitus that I suffered in the military. It's not related to wind terms. I'm not saying that, but I do know what tinnitus is. I received 20% disability from the military, so I'm familiar with it. The term was coined by Pierpoint, one of the authors, in 2009 to describe the problem associated with living close to industrial wind turbines and exposure to low frequency noise, infrasound, and shadow flicker. That's when you get the lights at night and they go on and off in a pattern. Population level survey in Maine, that's where one of the studies was done, and this study clearly shows disturbances of sleep, mental well-being up to 3.25 miles from the presence of the turbines. Indeed, the symptoms clinically reveal the linkage between the balance processing part of the brain, cognition, and memory. Linkages only now being described through experiments and functional brain imaging. Over 90% affected people in the sampled by Pierpoint, again, one of the authors, both adults and children had cognitive difficulties during wind turbine exposure, problems that lingered and resolved slowly after exposure ended. These included difficulties with children in thinking, learning abilities during exposure. Adults also experience problems with thinking, memory, and concentration. Distorted balance signaling for motion-sensitive people exposed to wind turbines. Such is the state of wind turbine syndrome research, published Wind Turbine Syndrome, a report on a natural experiment, substantial progress in figuring out the mechanism and other parameters of this industrial plague. It's worth pointing out that with one notable exception, none of these were done with government, industry, or foundation support. This was all done by private funding except for one. Separately, a man and a woman from different counties were told me quietly of their thoughts of committing suicide. Again, this is in the article. One driven from her home by relentless nausea and vomiting, and the other made ill whenever he returned home, being away from work. While governments, the wind industry and its scientific and clinical hirelings, and the media continue to belittle and deny the experience of these individuals, the media is filled with denial, ridicule, and venom. I am reminded once more that the physical, mental, social, and financial consequences of this perfectly correctable condition are appalling. Michael Nussbaum, he's one of the authors, reports that surveyed subjects up to 3 miles from the turbines showed effects on sleep and mood very directly with the distance from the turbines. Finally, Dr. Nussbaum, a Maine physician, presented the results of the study of 79 adults living up to 3 miles from the wind turbines in Maine. What are clinically called validated questionnaires on sleep disturbance, general physical, mental well-being, divided into study and groups based on distance from the turbines. Dr. Nussbaum found differences between the study and control groups in several sleep equality indices and in the mental health component of the general questionnaire. Even more remarkable, when he pooled the data from the study groups, he found a dose-response relationship out to about 5 kilometers, 3 miles from the turbines. This is a valuable study. The surveys required information only about the subject's current state of sleep and well-being without reference to the turbines. That's the end of this study. The next one I want to bring up is this appeared on Fox News recently. Matt Oliver is the author of this article, but it appeared on Fox News. Most of these wind turbines and their components are built in China. I'm not saying they're 100%, but the majority of them are. Because of this, they have found kill switches in them that can be turned on and off to kill these wind turbines, thus taking power away from the company. Because of this, Ed Miliband, who's the UK's Secretary of Energy, he called on, he was urged to impose an immediate pause on this green energy blitz to review whether UK solar plants are also at risk. The components found in the US included cellular radios capable of switching off the equipment remotely and raising serious concerns about grid security. And this is according to Reuters. They were found inside power inverters manufactured by unnamed Chinese entities. Power inverters are the key links between solar or wind farms and the rest of the power system, converting their electricity to a wider grid. One source being Reuters that comprising such equipment would give Beijing the ability to inflict blackouts on the West if they so choose and wanted to attack our country. That's one way it could be done. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Rose Fisher, I have you for 6 minutes.
I'm just gonna hold these somewhere where you can see them, if that's okay. That'll help you out a little bit.
Is that okay?
Oh, we're good. She has comments. Oh, sorry. That take a little time.
Okay. So good evening. You know who I am. I'm Rose Fisher. I live outside of Pleasant Grove. I'd like to thank you for arranging this meeting tonight. I think it'll be very helpful to hear concerned residents voice their views. Over the last few weeks, I've continually heard about wind energy development in Northwest Des Moines County. I've heard the project could be 30 to 40 turbines. I've heard it could be 40 to 50 turbines. I've also heard that the turbines would be placed in an area around Yarmouth and stretch south to Pleasant Grove. I really had no idea what that might look like. So I did a little research, and here's what I found out. For perspective, this is a map of Des Moines County showing a cluster of 84 red dots in the northwest corner. Each dot represents a proposed placement of a wind turbine by the wind company. This information was found on the FAA website. Moving to the next map, this is an aerial view zoomed to the planned development area. A search of the FAA database showed that the wind company submitted location coordinates for each proposed turbine. Each turbine was noted to have a height of 750 feet above ground level. The FAA determined there were no hazards to air navigation in this area. The next map shows parcels that have signed easements over the last couple of years with the current developers, Astevco and Big River Wind. This information was obtained from the Des Moines County GIS department. Records show that ownership of these parcels involved several entity names and individual names, but basically amount to about 14 people. Records also show there was a similar wind energy development planned about 10 years ago, but the project was abandoned after approximately 2 years. Interestingly, many of the people who signed up back then are the same people who signed up this time around. On my final map, the landowners who are in opposition to the current wind energy development or who have stated they do not plan to sign an easement are shown in green. The information was obtained in the last 2 weeks via phone or personal contact and plotted by the GIS department to the best of everybody's ability. As you can see, there is a lot of green area. These landowners expressed many concerns with the current project, including the destruction of prime farm ground the close proximity of the turbines to their property, the possible destruction to their property if there were to be a disaster, and loss of land values and the loss of their way of life. Obviously, I have many more landowners to contact. The point is that in 2+ years, the wind companies were able to get about 14 people to sign up. In the last 2 weeks, I was able to obtain information to color many of these parcels green. In a couple more weeks, it's very likely that I could color many of the remaining parcels green. The vast majority of people in Northwest Des Moines County, for many numerous reasons, do not want these turbines. And many people don't know just how extensive this project could be. Hopefully, these maps have been useful to help you visualize how large the opposition to this project truly is. Thank you.
Actually, I'm not sure if I wrote down right. Brad, are you or Leslie gonna speak? Leslie. All right, Leslie, you got 6 minutes. Bannock, sit down.
Coates, Leslie Coates. Coates. So I've got it written down, so I'll just start reading and I'll say it again. Okay. Good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Coates. My husband, Brad, the map guy, and I live on Golden Road, about a mile east of Pleasant Grove. We have only recently been made aware of the wind turbine plans in our area. Again, we missed it in the newspaper, or for whatever reason, we didn't know, and especially how extensive it was and how much it was going to affect us. The more that we've learned in the last 2 weeks, the more that we have realized how this project will personally affect our family and this community. I hope to give you tonight a good reason to re-examine certain aspects of this project, and mainly it's the setbacks. We think if we can get you to re-examine that portion of the ordinance, maybe that would change some of the way things are done. I'll just give you a little bit of our story. Brad and I moved here in 2006. He grew up in Mediapolis and wanted to raise our children here in his hometown. I grew up in Tennessee, but I love this place so much. It quickly has become my home. There's not a day that goes by that I don't look out our windows and feel so blessed to live in just such a peaceful, wonderful place. And just, it's been wonderful. And I don't know if people who grow up here realize what a treasure it is. But when you come from outside, it's just something to behold. We raised our 4 kids here, and as they were growing up, we were always planning where each of them would want to build a home on the property. As we rode horses or 4-wheelers around, we'd say, I like that spot, I like that spot. Right now, our 4 children are currently scattered all over the country. We have one in Salt Lake City, one in Morgantown, West Virginia, one in Nashville, and one in Chicago. And each week they will call us to update how their life is going. And the more they live in these cities, the more they think, I really want to bring my future family here and raise them on the farm so they can learn the work ethic and just the way of life that they had growing up. So I've lost my place here, sorry. So the current ordinance will make that very difficult and a lot less desirable for them. We've already heard this, but I'm just going to repeat real quickly. In the event of a thunderstorm, the turbine companies themselves recommend that employees evacuate to a distance of 3,280 feet for safety reasons. The current setback ordinances, which is what I'd like to reevaluate, only require a setback distance of 1,800 feet from a residence, which would make you think that was in the unsafe zone. Also, the current county ordinance only requires a setback distance of approximately 800 feet from a property line. So that affects us because several of our prime building sites are close to the property line. This makes those potential building sites unsafe per the turbine company's own policies. And to build outside of the danger zones, our children would have to build the distance of 8 football fields off the road. Beyond the obvious negative aesthetics of a wind turbine in your front yard, it adds great expense to land development. It's kind of a dream crusher for our children, and I'm sure that we're not the only family that is affected by the setback ordinance. So I guess one of my main points is this is just a beautiful place and we need these young families to want to come here, or the county will die. I mean, we may get more money for taxes for the schools, but if there's no children in the schools, it won't really matter. We need to keep the charm of Des Moines County, which is a big part of that. I'm going way off script, so anyway. Just for everybody, I do get it, and I respect the right of everyone to use their land in a way that they see fit, and I know that's their right. However, that is limited to the extent that it makes others' land unsafe and unusable. It's not right that one person building a turbine on their property makes parts of our property unsafe. And all that being said, I have a lot of concerns about this project, but specifically the setback distance specified in the current ordinance. Setback distances need to be an appropriate, safe distance from an appropriate starting point, which I believe is the property line, not the residence. And I just respectfully ask that the county re-examine these setback distances within the ordinance. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Cindy Newberry, have you for 12 minutes.
I faint, just push me out. Okay. This is not my thing. Okay. Well, a lot of the stuff that I have to say has thankfully already been said from some people because they're paying attention and learning as we're learning, because we were all behind the wall of not knowing anything. So we have obtained an actual contract from some of the landowners that have signed with Big River, and included in that contract is a nuisance easement. And a lot of these people have referred to it. And so what I would like to point out, and I have copies for you guys too. This is right out of the book, out of the contract. And I want you to listen to the exact words. This is the nuisance easement. Owner, meaning whoever signs this, hereby grants the company non-exclusive, perpetual, that's forever, irrevocable, can't get out of it, easement right and entitlement on, over, across, and under premises. Everything there is for any audio, visual, view, light, noise, vibration, air turbulence, wake, shadow flicker, electromagnetic television reception, ice or other weather created hazards, or other effort of any kind whatsoever. Who's going to sign this? Owner, on behalf of itself, heirs, successors, and assigns, hereby waives and releases any right, claim, cause of action which it may have now, have, or which it may have in the future, known or unknown, against the company. Who'd sign that? I wouldn't. I mean, everything in here that's mentioned are things they say are not going to be a problem. They're not going to be a problem. That, you know, oh, it's not really noisy. It's, you know, so what if ice flings off 1,700 foot from a wind turbine on your property or your house or your car going down the road? I'm amazed. And these contracts could be in effect for up to 64 years. They can't get out of them. We all have to live with it for 64 years. That will be 2089. So it's not really going to affect me because I'll be gone. I believe that increasing the setback distances will help with some of these problems. Like has been mentioned, the Nordex safety manual is where the 3,280 feet come from for workers to be away from it when it's a lightning storm. So where you go to escape from a storm is your home. And if the If it's from your home to the turbine, it may not be that far. These have to be to our property lines, 3280 from the property lines. Like Leslie, they may want to build houses for their kids. You can't even do that after that and be safe. I've heard so many times that they cannot tell them what to do with their property, and that's true. But we deserve the same courtesy that limits us what to do and our safety. Also, when they measure from the base of the turbine, you've already lost a lot of ground because those blades are, well, with a 750-foot turbine, they're 330 feet long. So as the turbine turns, it's closer and closer to your property and your house, which makes it really bad because they do fling ice, which makes sense. They de-ice planes and these blades get ice. When they turn, the faster they turn and it gets warmer, the ice flings. So I have a couple questions myself. Where can I find a 650-foot turbine or 750-foot turbine that is what they're talking about? Does anybody know where I can go see one? No? Because I don't think there are any. We can't find it. We're guinea pigs. We don't even know what these 750, we don't know. Because the bigger it is, the more it's going to vibrate, the more it's going to do everything, the more noise it's going to make. There's no end to the problems with these. I understand people want to do it. First of all, it's just not a good time to do it because so many things are changing with the government right now. We have 650 people on our Facebook page. We had 224 hours when we started that. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of concern. This is all petitions we have signed. There's 500 here. And we haven't even tried hardly to do this because we've been busy doing this. Anyway, thank you for your time. I'm glad you let us tell you our story. Thank you.
John Newberry. 3 minutes.
Hello, gentlemen. My name is John Newberry. I live in Pleasant Grove Township. I have 16 acres up there. Beautiful, beautiful acres. So I'm going to read an article to you from our Quad Cities News Local 4. And it's the title of it, Clinton County has moved closer to adopting new rules when it comes to building wind turbines in the county. The County Planning and Zoning Commission approved changes to the existing ordinance. Those changes would increase the setbacks for any new turbine to be about 2,500 feet from a property line, not the house, a property line, which is about double the current setback. No wind turbines can be built within 10 miles of the Mississippi River. There would also be a 2-mile setback requirement for any city border within Clinton County. I like the idea of the 10 miles from the Mississippi River to protect our natural resources. But I think you should also look at 10 miles from the Iowa River. That's a flyway. That's an important river to our system to keep it from any environmental damage. So this article came out May 13th, 2025. So that's all I've got. I just hope you open up this ordinance for setbacks so we can really get into it and figure out something good for the county. So I just have a few other things I want to throw out there while I got the time. In Texas, James Taylor of the Heartline Institute came up with figures for megawatt hours of generation. So the amount of money it takes to generate 1 megawatt of power. For solar, it's $413 for 1 megawatt. That's 1 million watts. For wind, it's $291 for one. For nuclear, it's $122. For coal, it's $90. And for natural gas or LNG, it's only $40. So that just general information if you want to know what the costs are. So this statement here I like the most, and I'm going to end with it is, without government subsidies to the wind industry, there is no wind industry. Thank you for allowing me this time. Thank the employees for doing all they have to do to get this set up for us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Peterson, 3 minutes.
Dan Peterson, Sperry, Iowa, Des Moines County. Just kind of a personal note I want to bring to this. I left Iowa as a young man and lived a lot of different places in the country, Louisiana, Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, Kansas City. And when I finally moved back here, I realized just how special rural Iowa is. It's something that people all over this country could just dream about. The gravel roads, the starry nights, the quiet nights out in the country in rural Iowa, it's something you can't get many places. And I've witnessed it. I've also witnessed working for the railroad, sitting in Ransom, Illinois, in the middle of a wind farm with all the red lights flashing. There's no way you can ignore it. There's no way you can get used to it. It's just part of your life now. And I have my daughters live in, all of them moved to Florida. They come back to visit. They bring people with them back. Last summer, my daughters was in dance classes in Southern Florida, brought a friend from, actually from Venezuela, one from Colombia, young lady from Connecticut. They swear they want to come back to Iowa for their vacations. We got something special here. That is going to change it. What is that worth? I think our tax base, I think there's other methods. I think people who are putting up these generous, I think they can still put food on the table. And there's a lot of debate about the validity of the wind generation anyway. It's not a slam dunk. You know, the fiberglass is considered non-biodegradable. That means it doesn't go away. They're only good for a certain amount of time. The disposal of them is just, you can't call that eco-friendly when you're dealing with problems like that. It's not a slam dunk. I just want to get my point from what I've experienced. My love for rural Iowa, which I think is shared by a lot of people out in the rural country. This will change all that. And I really don't think we want this as our legacy to the generations to come. Because it's going to be there, like I spoke before, for our grandkids, our great grandkids will be dealing with it. That'll be our legacy if we let this thing go through. Thank you for your time.
Okay. I have you for 12 minutes.
I do have 3 packets if you want to follow along with me. Would that help? Okay. I may go off. First name's Darren. I'm from Mediapolis. First off, my husband was up here talking about the turbine wind syndrome. And I want to kind of expound upon that a little bit with a personal note for myself. I have, without doing a HIPAA rule here, I have a brain disorder and I also have visual problems and I have aura migraines. We go to Ohio, or my husband's from Ohio, right on the Indiana-Ohio border where there's wind farms. Every time we go through there, go back to his home, I have to lay back in the seat. It sets me off, puts me into vertigo, and it's a horrible feeling, and it does happen. And this company, not the company, the research that was done by Dr. Pierpont and her team, it was published in the NIH, National Institute of Health, and the WHO has also recognized this. Wind companies, the government, the media have suppressed this. They wouldn't give money towards it because it doesn't suit the narrative. So this is a real thing. And at the meeting the other night, we had a committee meeting, and there was a lady there who stood up, and she lived, I believe in Indiana, some might correct me, that she lived next door to a wind turbine that was by her. And she's an older woman, and she said nausea, dizziness. They sold their house and moved. They found out that in 1 year, that house they lived in was sold 3 times because of the same thing. So this is a real thing to worry about. And they also found out from the study that it can reach out from 3 to 5 miles from the infrasound, aerodynamic sound, and the infrasound. Infrasound, it goes into your brain and also to the ear. And what it can do with it's kind of like if you've got vertigo, and if you've ever had that before with the crystals in your ear, anybody ever experienced the dizziness, it can affect you without even being that feeling of seasick, not even with anything moving. They found this to be the fact that usually if you see moving, you might get dizzy. Well, this infrasound comes out, it can come up to 5 miles, and they have 3 miles for sure, and even up to 5. And they said that this is a real thing, that people are getting this dizziness. So I wanted to address that. First off, I talked to you last time about the Davenport Weather Service with their radar, if there was any blocking. Sorry, did I get it up front for you? I'm sorry, my picture, I gave you the website. You can go look at this picture and get the colors. It's going to be an issue with the 750-foot turbine. Since the Mississippi Flyway, which is a super highway for birds, and to let you know, which is back here in my notes, we had, in 7 days, we had 24,115,300 birds that went directly over Des Moines County. That's a lot of birds. And in those, we also had endangered species as well. And I'm not even counting the bat population. And also the monarch butterflies have not come yet, but they're coming. And they're an endangered species as well. But in New Sharon, what they were getting, there was the wind turbines in New Sharon and Montezuma in Iowa. The areas were the area with the wind farms were interfering with the NWS, National Weather Service radar. This bears repeating. We're looking at here are wind turbines effectively jamming the government's Doppler weather radar, thus blinding the National Weather Service to any real threats. So I just wanted you to look at that. On the second page, if you look on this page right here, second page, this came actually off USA Today, and it was given examples of what happens with wind turbines and these farms with the National Weather Service, and also Homeland Security, being able to get the radar through. Well, this will be the tallest in the country right now if we do 750 feet. And with the Mississippi Flyway, with the millions of birds going over the migratory, we have it spring and summer coming from the north, coming up from the south. And we're kind of like the area up in Mississippi. We are kind of like the landing zone right here. And when they come in, they're coming in a downward path when they come into land and they do their mating here and their proliferation. But they can see on the second one, they got the flock of birds, which they can see. But if we put wind turbines in there, and they won't be able to see what is going on in Des Moines County and beyond, and going into Henry County. So if you go on the last page, looks at all the tornadoes that we have had. I want everybody to see this in the last 50 years. And this is really, we've been prolific in the last 4 years. And this tells you the area of the tornadic activity. And when these things go down in tornadoes, as I think you guys know in eastern and in western Iowa, I don't know the town, I don't have it in front of me, where the turbines are still down, that came down, that massive tornado, that F4, they're still down. It's been 2 years, and they caught fire, and that's been an issue. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about the amount of birds that came through. Last night, well, not last night, was a low night because of the storms, but on May 15th, we had 1,347,000. On May 14th, we had 5,104,300 went right over Des Moines County and directly over where these turbines are going. And the average height coming in is around 1,000 feet, but that's the average height. So we got low birds coming in, we got hummingbirds coming in, our songbirds, and we got our ones that do come in, that can come in at 3,000 to 5,000 feet. That's an average. So I thought I'd talk about that. Okay, next thing I wanted you to kind of look at is I'm sorry, I should have brought a better color map for you. It's this right here. I'm kind of giving a perspective in the United, well, the back one shows you the Mississippi Highway Flyway for our birds. Okay, can anybody see? Here we are, ground zero right there. They come up, they come down. You look at this map right here. This is what's interesting. Look at where this shows the wind farms and the windmills in the country. Shows you how many are in the state of Iowa. We're number 2 next to Texas. Okay, even Texas only has one, Texas A&M, that's a tall turbine. But this height, and if you look at Iowa, look how we've kept it, our southeast Iowa. And look up and down the whole Mississippi River and the flyway. You'll find what down Mississippi, one turbine. Why do you think these states have done that? To protect the ecosystem, to protect our birds and our endangered species that are out there, especially our flyway. We mess with the 400+ million birds that come through this flyway at two times a year, over 400 million. Oh my God, we even actually, they say they could be up to 1 billion. What are we going to do? What's happening? This could be catastrophic like it was in the 70s with DDT. Remember that when we about lost our bird population? This is more than just setbacks, and which I think is great. I'm not get that wrong, but we're messing with Mother Nature here, that we don't know the ramifications of what can happen here. And I have talked to different departments. I did talk to Ron Helling. He sent me a statement, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. First off, next thing I want to go to is the endangered species, what we have to deal with. And this needs to be addressed. We have monarch butterflies are near extinction. Growing up, didn't everybody have a monarch butterfly? They used to see them. They don't see them anymore. They're near extinction. Their flight pattern, you see it on this page, we go into this, you'll see their flight pattern is right over Des Moines County. Now, the rag bicycle riders were throwing milkweed off in the ditches, trying to create more, that's what they feed off of, trying to get a growth pattern, because this part of Iowa does have the monarch butterflies go over it. Number 2, we have the golden eagle, which is a protected endangered species, which there is an interactive, if you go up, the Audubon Society has an interactive map that actually show you the moving pattern through the flyway. It's really fascinating to see where they go. And they go right over us, right over Des Moines County. They follow the rivers, and Iowa River is important, and so is the Mississippi right here. But it kind of gives you an idea. That's another endangered species. The bald eagle, we have around 500,000. We have brought them back. They still are considered an endangered species. They are protected under the new Iowa law as of January 12th of 2025, which I've got in there for you. So the bald eagle, there's their path as well. You can see their path goes right over Des Moines County and right where the windmills are going. Next thing, we have the peregrine falcon. I don't know if I have that peregrine falcon in here or not. Yeah, the peregrine falcon is extremely endangered. And it goes up and down the Iowa River, the Mississippi, and has been spotted out in Des Moines County. So bald eagles, we all see bald eagles in the fields. And the peregrine falcon is one of the rarest. So we have to take care of that. Now, those are our species. Now I'm going to go to the bats. Bats are very important for the ecosystem. They're pollinators, they're insect eaters for our agriculture. I talked to Ron Helling, well, my husband and I talked to Ron Helling today, who's on the conservation board. He's speaking for himself. He's not speaking for the board as of yet because he wants to do investigation, but this is what he told me. He handles Big Hollow. Big Hollow handles Indiana bats. Indiana bats, there's so few of them left. They got a white nose syndrome, which is a fungus. And with that, along with the windmills, they're talking about wind energy, is taking out these bats. They have had kills. Noted, and we'll get to that in a minute. But this is what Ron said, because I was concerned about Big Hollow. Big Hollow is within right of where these wind turbines are going. And the wind turbines, they attract the bats. They think they're trees. They follow straight lines, and they see the motion, and they think they're leaves, and they go in. It's devastating to them. This is what Ron said, and he said I could read this to everybody. I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting, but I'm very interested in the moratorium being placed on the proposed wind farm in the Yarmouth and Pleasant Grove area. There are numerous reasons for my concerns, but I wanted to primarily speak to the well-documented damage to birds and bats from the blaze of the wind turbines. Bat populations in our area are fragile. Asking them to survive another threat to their existence might tip the scales on their presence in our community. I think we have better options for our energy needs that would better protect our endangered wildlife. Ron Helling. All right. And Star Cave, which is in Des Moines County, they closed the cave. I don't know if anybody knew that, to protect the bats. So that's been closed. I do have, he's going to be contacting, I don't know her, and I think it was Karen Ziegler. I'm not sure for her name. I didn't write it down. She's going to be sending you something about the Indiana bat and what's happening in the population. Now, state of Iowa has come out January 12th with the Iowa bat protection laws and the legal consequences of our bats. They gave them legal status because of the fragility of our bat population. I had no idea that a bat can eat about half their body weight in insects in one evening. I had no idea. I have in Minneapolis one bat that always, it used to be two, now we're down to one, that always comes. I live on the south side by the cornfield, and there's one light, street light, and he comes by and does his figure eight. I don't know what kind of bat it is, but it used to be two, now I'm down to one. I've been there 9 years. And it's a brown bat, but I couldn't tell you. We also have the long-eared, the long-haired brown bat. That's now considered endangered. So excuse me. So anyway, it gives you the protections under Iowa law, penalties for killing bats, the exceptions and permits. Now, we talked about the takeaways that they can do for incidental hits. I think each one of these endangered birds, bats, insects needs to be examined and studied. You guys don't want to go down in history. We don't want to go down that. We are the reason that we had the Indiana bat go down, or the monarch butterfly. So anyway, this is something we need to look at, and I know that's my time, isn't it? But anyway, there has been one precedence of a case, a federal case in West Virginia, where a federal judge did shut down a wind farm, and because of the Indiana bat. And so we do have precedents for that. And I'm here to protect those who can't talk for themselves. We have to be good stewards of our environment, along with our fellow citizens. So I think that's it. Was that my time? All right. All right. Thank you.
Or 12 minutes.
Okay. Thanks for having us here tonight. I appreciate you making this special effort. Okay. Hello, my name is Allison Moore. I live 1.5 miles straight east of Yarmouth. I'm standing here today to talk about roads. My late husband, Rob, worked out of the Yarmouth shed for the secondary roads department for almost 15 years running the maintainer. I'm very familiar with gravel and dirt roads. In fact, I'm surrounded by 3 dirt roads, and I have one way out using gravel when the others aren't suitable. It's very common with spring thaw especially to know that there's even some gravel roads that I have to avoid if I don't want to get stuck. That's okay, you learn, you get used to it. Here's why I'm concerned about the roads. The closest parcel with a signed lease agreement is just a half mile from our home. I'm very concerned what the extremely heavy trucks and repetitive loads would do to our road conditions. Will intersections need to be widened? Will culverts need replaced? What will happen to tiles that get broken and drainage systems affecting water flow? Will we need tons and tons of new big gravel to make dirt roads or to make the roads drivable? We already have roads that sometimes need to be marked because there's large holes that we can see down into. What will the heavy trucks do to these spots? I don't want to think of the destruction, complaints, and headaches that this will surely cause. I would like to ask that our ordinance be opened so that we can include drainage systems into our road use agreement, as well as have a required escrow fund available for damage done for easily accessible payouts. These things mentioned might be something that town folk don't understand or care about. They have no reason to, but it is a real concern for us that travel miles of gravel daily. Now, the largest land turbine that I can find in Iowa are currently 180 meters tall. The largest land turbines in the whole US appear to be 199 meters tall. Keep in mind, these being proposed here are 198 to 228 meters tall. We could potentially have the largest ever commercial wind turbines erected right here in our beautiful farm country. Do we want to be guinea pigs for something uncharted and effects unknown? No, we don't. Now, back to my road damage and my concerns. Here are some stats for the largest turbine, 199 meters tall, at the Advanced Wind Turbine Test Facility at West Texas A&M University. This would not be exact, but should be very comparable in size and materials needed, although keep in mind, these are, those were 199 meters tall. This could be another 29 meters taller. These stats are for one individual turbine that they erected. First, the foundation. It's 72.5 feet across and 11 feet deep. It required 80 cement mixers of concrete, equaling 772 cubic yards of concrete, 71 tons of rebar, and 29 tons of bolt cage for one turbine. Now the crane. This took 100 truckloads just to haul the massive crane parts that would be used to assemble this one turbine. The actual tower came in 7 sections shipped in. The tower sections equal 130 meters tall. The generator that sits on top is 188,600 pounds and 17 feet in diameter. The blades, there's 3 of them, 221 feet long sections, weighing 49,000 pounds each, requiring special long transport trucks that you see needed for each blade. This monster I've described has a 446-foot diameter spin, and again, is 199 meters tall. We are being proposed 198 to 228 meters tall. Keep in mind, this is located alone at a test site in the barren flats of the West Texas Wind Corridor, not littered throughout Iowa's prime farmland. All of this weight and hauling on our roads, I can't even imagine. This was for one turbine. How many are being proposed here? I hear anything from 30 to 50 to 80 plus. They proudly say that you have to stand a half mile away to be able to capture the whole thing that I've described to you in a picture, but they would not be living a half mile away like I could very well be if these go through. Please don't let this happen to our beautiful Des Moines County. We are blessed to share this together. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ross? Three minutes, sir. 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yes. Hello, I'm Craig Ross. I live in southwest Louisa County. The current wind project in Des Moines County is in parts of Louisa County as well, and that's why I feel compelled to speak. There's a nice group of citizens or a group of people here this evening, but it's my view, it is not a true representation of the public sentiment of this wind project. Let's say we ask every citizen in Burlington, what's your opinion of wind turbines? You could have a large percentage respond, I like them, or I'm okay with them, or I have no opinion either way. So now let's ask this group, would you want to live next to a wind turbine? This group then becomes much smaller. So now let's inform the remainder of this group. These turbines are 650 to 750 feet tall. Think of the St. Louis Arch. The blades are constantly rotating while operating, and they will be close as 1,800 feet. That's about 5 football fields from your residence. Again, this group becomes smaller yet. So now let's inform this group there are real health and safety risks living close to turbines. Some of these are, but not all, shadow, flicker, infrasound, and some of the safety risks, but not all, as stated in the Nordex Tower Safety Manual for employees and workers, during thunderstorms, they should leave the wind farm, wait in a vehicle at a safe distance, approximately 1 kilometer, 3,280 feet. Wait 1 hour after thunderstorm has passed before returning. So now, if there is anybody still left in this group, we can let them know there is a high probability the value of their residence could be significantly reduced. The golden rule in real estate is location, 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 and a willing buyer. Nobody is left in this group. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Tim Fisher for 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Tim Fisher. I live just outside of Pleasant Grove with my wife who spoke earlier. I would like to see the CWEX ordinance amended for the following reasons. When the original ordinance was approved and amended in 2023, the tallest turbine height in Iowa was about 590 feet. At that time, the setback distance from an occupied dwelling was set at 1,800 feet, and from the property line would calculate out about 649 feet. As Rose stated in her map presentation, and I don't have a map with me, so the turbines up to 750 feet have been determined as non-hazardous to the corresponding airspace by the FAA, and they were all plotted on her map. What this means is that these will be the tallest turbines in the state, and I'm concerned about the safety of residents in close proximity, as this is approximately a 27% increase in height. And I believe the current setbacks should be increased accordingly. As Cindy Newberry stated in her comments, the setbacks should be from the property line, not the occupied dwelling. And remember, turbine blades rotate on the tower to face away from and towards the property at different distances. It means if you measure the blade tip, you're going to lose about 300 feet of setback if they go to the full 750-foot height. Another issue I have is that twice in 2023 and again in 2024, there were 3 turbine fires in Mechanicsville, Iowa, due to lightning strikes, which seem to be quite common on them. With a planned turbine height of 750 feet, lightning strikes may be even more likely. Because of this, I believe the turbines need to have a fire suppression system and lightning arrestor systems installed and inspected on a timely basis for operation and safety if they're allowed to go up. I'm also concerned with the financial burden this could place on landowners. I have read in Ordinance 62 concerning CWEX that all costs associated with permitting, construction, installation, etc., shall be the responsibility of the developer, owner, and/or operator. It goes on to say that no such cost shall be passed on to Des Moines County, its taxpayers, or individual landowners in the CWEX project area. As Allison Moore discussed in her comments, there's strong possibility of damage to roads and bridges during the construction process. The ordinance is unclear about the process of reimbursement for damage to the county and to non-participating properties. Maybe an escrow account should be set up to establish to take care of these issues. Based on the issues presented today by myself and others, I would like to request that the Des Moines County Supervisors review these issues and amend the current wind ordinance to provide additional safety to the affected residents. You can tell from the maps presented today, there is a strong opposition to this development that could have devastating effect for many years to come. And it is very important that we get this right for Des Moines County's future. Thank you.
Clifford Baker, 9 minutes.
Evening. I'm Clifford Baker. I live in New London, Iowa, and I run the airport in Mount Pleasant as airport manager. I don't have a nice little stuff to say or whatever, as far as a pamphlet or whatever to give out, but I've been in aviation for over 25 years, and from an aviation standpoint, the way I want to start it off with is all power generation comes with a risk. obviously, when in coal mines and, throughout the years, people have had to, have safety issues with those kind of things. Now, when it comes to, really, from an aviation standpoint, aviation is my life. I've been a crop duster and I've been a cargo pilot. I've been I've done medevac services before, not from a helicopter, but from transporting organs and such. The people that brought the FAA in, statistics in, the FAA does take a risk management to it, but they don't take into risk of the VFR pilots, like what my not company, but the company I fly for, because we apply chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers all the way from Fairfield, Iowa, over to the river, Mississippi River, all the way down to the Missouri state line. Oh, I'm sorry, visual flight rules. So there's VFR and IFR, instrument flight rules and visual flight rules. Instrument flight rules are kind of like right now with the weather the way it is. You have to be able to shoot an approach, which with these tall wind turbines, instrument approaches into the Burlington Airport, into the Washington Airport, Muscatine, Fairfield, or Fort Madison, Keokuk, Mount Pleasant will all be affected. Because the other thing that comes into that with instrument approaches is radar coverage, like so many people have said. Radar coverage is a proven science, but it is a very flawed science into the aspect that when you have so many moving objects in an area, the radar coverage is scattered. It's got clutter on it. And I can oppose to that. I can come to that because when I was doing cargo from Denver, Colorado to Garden City, Kansas, where they have millions of these out there. I'm not just talking thousands, millions of them, where they all blink synchronized. They would lose me on radar even at 12,000 feet. 12,000 feet AGL, which is above ground. And then you have MSL, which is mean sea level. But that's more of the aviation part of it. With the three different aspects of aviation I'm in, not only the management, but the crop dusting. With the crop dusting, or the aerial application that we like to call it, because crop dusting gets kind of a sad or bad rap. That sign right there, that's about how far above the ground I'm flying at 150 miles per hour. And I'm applying fertilizers and fungicides to protect the crops. So I've personally flown around these wind turbines before, and the farmers and the co-ops that we fly for, that we apply, and protect the cropland for, they have said we'd turn them off, but and they could turn them off instantly. Well, that's not so much the case, and I've personally flown around these things, flown under them, around them, on top of them, and it does affect our application in several ways as far as drift to other crops or houses. It does affect the wind traveling to crosswinds or what have you at the airport. So even the turbines that are proposed that we've seen there, and the ones they wanted to do in Henry County that I've talked about as well, they will affect the wind patterns at the Burlington Airport. They'll affect the wind patterns in front of the turbines over there in Northern, because we have two strips. We fly out of the Mount Pleasant Airport, which, aerial application protects farmers and their crops, and it also provides a more efficient way of getting, being able to help the environment, I guess. It's just the biggest thing. But with the wind turbines, when I was spraying up in Carroll, and Denison, Iowa, they had farms up there where they were supposed to shut them down. They didn't. And the application cost, not only to the farmer, but to the co-op and eventually to the taxpayer, the application cost rose. So the benefits from all the tax breaks, not necessarily tax dollars, that go from the wind turbines to the county ends up having to pay some other expenses with crop insurance, because insurance affects us all. But that's from the application standpoint. From a aviation standpoint in general, the radar coverage is very, very unreliable in places where wind turbines are, especially Western Kansas, Southern Texas, Western Texas. I've flown all those places before. they lose you on radar because they can't see you because they're cluttered by that. But the thing I can speak to that I've personally talked to airport managers and people who own airports in Western Kansas, Hill City and Colby, Kansas, is their airports are actually starting to decline. And the economic impact from not having your airport, like Burlington Airport provides a service, Mount Pleasant provides a service, Muscatine provides a service, all these airports provide service, and the community that has an airport does thrive and receives tax dollars for the county, but also it provides a very economic and community sense for aviation, because I don't know how many times I've flown over somebody's farm and there was a kid out there watching and it inspired him to fly. So it's kind of a humbling experience sometimes with that. But yeah, the application cost, the safety of flying around these things, the FAA has what's called accidents and incidents. Accidents are what you hear about, like the helicopter that hit the airplane in DC. Well, they were under radar coverage and they still hit each other. If I'm flying around, or anybody here, VFR, Visual Flight Rules, flying out of Burlington around here is flying, you're required to maintain 500 feet AGL above the ground. Well, with the turbines being 750 foot, it's going to make that area and the areas surrounding really hard for the aviation community in general in the U.S. to come to your airport or come to any airport. And that increases people wanting to go to the big airports, and the communities that have the airports, those airports tend to die off. And when those airports die off, their economic impact hurts a lot. And I can't speak for the medevac guys that fly the helicopters, but I love to have the insurance game in it, because they've made this scenario to me before when I try to get insurance for myself. Is if I hit something like a power line or a tree and I go down, if that medevac helicopter can't land there because of the wind turbines and get me to a hospital in time or an emergency room in time, that's a bit of an issue with me, and with my family. But the going back to the accidents and incidents, there are the FAA only in the FSDO, the FAA, which is the FSDO, is the Flight Standards District's office for Ankeny, and the NTSB, they only required to report accidents. There are far more incidents of aircraft striking wind turbines than there are accidents. Incidents means the aircraft didn't go down, but it was substantially damaged where they had to go back and land and have repairs. So not only does that provide or purpose a safety issue, but it makes you not want to go into aviation in general. But that's from my standpoint. What is it here? Sorry, I made some. Yeah. Most of the time, the studies have shown now, and especially in Western Kansas, why there's like Garden City and Dodge City areas and farther west, when the airports close or when those windmills go in, wind turbines, windmills, those towns tend to basically what Western Kansas and Western Texas do, go off into the dust, because nobody wants to move there because they can't even fly into there, or they can't have a comfortable aviation, related operations there. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Briefly, you mentioned the herbicide and pesticide drift, that it affects it. It didn't say what that effect is. So can you tell us kind of what normal drift is?
So the normal drift, even a ground rig or a ground rig operation has drift, but from an aviation standpoint, our drift is minimal compared to a ground rig. But when we drift, we can't spray by the label on the pesticide. It whether be a herbicide, a fungicide, or a insecticide. We're not allowed to spray after over 15 miles an hour on the label compared to the label. But our drift is minimal. But when we fly around the turbines, the drift lifts the pesticide into the air and can carry it for 10 miles. According to that, it could very well. I don't know how, I can't remember exactly how far the arm is. I fly out of a Yarmouth Strip, 2 miles east of Yarmouth, Cecil Skanks old land runway, but that's at least 10, 12 miles. That's Burlington. But yeah, with the drift, that's our job, is to minimize and mitigate drift. So yeah.
Drew Gieselman for 3 minutes.
Gieselman. Gieselman. And I am from Southwest, or I'm from Louisa County in the corner. And I come here to Des Moines County because this doesn't just affect Des Moines County, it's affecting Henry County and Louisa County, which are all within a stone's throw of where I live. And if you know, I don't have any notes, I don't have any paper. I am talking from the heart to you guys here. And I don't really have a ton of facts, but I do have one fact. One fact is, do you know what the average airspeed or average wind speed for this area is on a yearly basis, excluding 2025? It's around 12 miles an hour. So now when we talk about 650 and 750 foot towers, that's why they have to be so tall, because we don't have enough wind speed to sustain ones that are much lower and a lower profile. That's why you see those out in Western Iowa where wind speeds are much more higher, at a higher rate. So I just thought I'd throw that little tidbit out. But from the heart, as I said, legacy is important for us in these small rural communities. It's important for Burlington. What do you think about when you think of Burlington? I think of the Mississippi River and I think of the bridge. I don't want to think about wind towers. I don't want to think about industrial wind complexes here in our local community. I look at it from a family standpoint. I'm a 40-year-old man. I'm still young. I consider myself middle-aged, but I have 6 children, 5 years and younger. And I look at the future much differently now than I did 5 years ago before my children. I look at the land that I live on now as a legacy for those children to grow on. I look at the land around me as a legacy for my family to grow on, to be able to move to live there, that want to live there and not want to live somewhere else. I grew up on a small family farm. I have roots here in Burlington, as the Gieselman name. Some people might actually know that. We established ourselves here in the 1850s, and my family moved in the 1930s to Louisa County. And so the preservation of this land and this area is important to me, not just Des Moines County, but Louisa County and Henry County both, because we need our families to move back to these places. They don't need to move out of Iowa. They need to move back to Iowa. There are jobs here. Agriculture is growing. It's not going anywhere, and the jobs are less. And we need young individuals to want to live here. And if they see these things up, I don't think that people are going to want to move to these areas. So we're going to see an aging population and a dwindling population as we look down the road at 50 years of these contracts. And another thing, as far as a fact goes, Louisa County has a solar farm. One little fact that many people don't know is that that solar farm is no longer owned by the people who built it. Now, my wondering is, are those contracts that were signed still eligible now that it's a new company? I don't have that answer. And I would boast to know, I don't know the answer about the contracts for these wind towers either. And is 50 years plausible for a company to own these wind towers? Looking at the renewable energy infrastructure and the way the companies are run, my guess is probably multiple companies are going to own these over the years. And whether or not these contracts are honored, I don't know. And that's up for question. And so I implore you guys to think about the legacy that you guys leave and that we leave. I appreciate your public servitude to Des Moines County and the area around there. I appreciate you guys holding this meeting. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, what's that? So are you related to Warren?
Yes, sir. That would be my great uncle.
I can't tell for sure. I think Bill Crawford is next. If you want to speak, you weren't sure. However, you now have 9 minutes. So
No, I don't need 9 minutes.
Well, that is real slow.
By the way, I hope you noticed the little models over here. These are pretty much scale. If these are 650 feet, this is the Olds Water Tower and the Whalen Water Tower. They're 120 feet. The only difference is the sweep on the 650s they want in Henry County and the 750s they want here. The sweep will be way lower, 75 feet, 50 to 75 feet from the ground. This obviously is probably about 130. So this is an older model, but they're made just like the real ones. So I've picked like a show of hands. Who's here wanting to amend the ordinance? Raise your hands. Take a look, guys. Okay, thank you. I usually speak from the hip too, but I did jot down a few things. I'm a little nervous. I don't like crowds that big. I'm not a ringer. I am from Henry County. My wife has deep roots in Des Moines County. Both sides of her family, from Pleasant Grove to Danville to Middletown to Burlington. They work in the county. They own property in the county. They pay taxes in the county. I, like Drew and Craig, I have property in Louisa County adjacent to this project. I live in the epicenter in the Henry County project. So I do have an interest. I'd like to invite you guys to join some of the rest of the counties and make Southeast Iowa a sanctuary area of the state. They're only here, like Drew said, we're the last ones in the state. Our wind speed is so low. Look at any meteorological map, or I use the Iowa State map. We're the lowest speed of wind in the state of Iowa, historically. So take that in consideration. Why would you take a risk on all these unknowns? There's a couple of things we're just touched on. Infrasound. People don't want to talk about it because they don't know anything about it. So you can't see it, you can't touch it, and you can't smell it. But you can't see radiation or touch it or smell it either, or ultraviolet rays. So once again, why take a risk on the unknown? We know what we have now. You know, your best natural resource is your people. You stand to lose people. You're not going to gain people with these projects. Maybe 8 full-time jobs at most with 80 turbines. The rest are temporary jobs. So, like's been said, why would somebody move here? It's a beautiful county. So, I got some other things I jotted down. Most of these people have done their homework and everything. They picked up on everything. So, I'll call it quits. Thanks for your opportunity.
Robin Wexel for 3 minutes.
I'm a little slow. Ask this for your last name.
Wexell. My husband and I live about halfway between Meepo and Yarmouth, and we've lived here for 23 years. I just would like to speak today about the special place where we live here in Des Moines County, as many others have said already. It's a beautiful place with rich farmland, family farms, homes, wildlife. It's quiet and peaceful. It's what people who live in the country expect it to be. Lately, as I make my morning drive to work, I've been trying to envision what these wind turbines would look like in this beautiful countryside. On Sunday, I was able to see firsthand what it would look like as we drove over to Galva, Illinois area to attend a graduation. The countryside is very much like here, but then as I got closer to Galva, I began to see the wind turbines in the midst of all this beautiful farmland. I'm not sure how many there were. Seemed like there's hundreds of them. I realized that this could be our fate. These huge turbines ruin the beauty of the countryside. Some of these weren't that far apart either, and there were so many of them. I challenge anyone who might think this is not a big deal, to just take an hour and a half drive over to Galva and see for yourself. This is not what we signed up for when we chose to live in the country. I believe these wind turbines do not belong here. I'm not completely against green energy production in the form of wind turbines in a desert in Arizona would be okay, where there's no homes or farms, but I think they don't belong here. I understand the enticement of the payout to the landowners, and my thought is, what is the price their neighbors will have to pay? Thank you for your time.
Long for 6 minutes. LONG. Good evening. I'm Jake Long. I am speaking in a non-official capacity. I am a first responder and firefighter for the Yarmouth Fire Department. I'm also a first responder with Mediapolis Community Ambulance. But I'm not speaking for those organizations right now. I'm speaking as a concerned citizen with knowledge of emergency services. Okay. A couple things that I am concerned about, or after doing some research, is if one of those turbines catches fire, which the statistics I'm finding are 1 in every 2,000 turbines catch fire, but you take that number over the entire United States, that's pretty frequently. You add the height of the proposed turbines, it's going to be more frequent with lightning strikes. Now, I want everybody just to travel with me here and envision it's end of September, beginning of October. All right, it's fall, the corn's drying down. Freak thunderstorm comes through, hits the turbine. All right, is anybody here a firefighter or been a firefighter? Okay. If you've never been in a cornfield that's on fire, it's very, very dangerous. Very dangerous for everybody involved. The only time I've ever seen a fire tornado was in a cornfield fire. If that turbine catches fire with the wind blowing, those embers of fiberglass, melted fiberglass, are going to go. How big a fire are we going to be talking about? It's going to be massive. Now, right now, if we have a structure fire, we strike the box, which means Burlington, West Burlington respond to a fire in Burlington. Mediapolis covers for Burlington. Danville covers for West Burlington. What's going to happen when we have a 100 or 200 acre cornfield fire? How many resources are we going to donate? And who's going to pay for it? Taxpayers are going to pay for it. In my opinion, the wind company should pay for it because they started the fire. Then we look at the crop damage caused by said fire. As a farmer, I'm also a farmer, full-time farmer. Crop insurance is there to cover my bases for natural disasters, correct? Weather, acts of God, as we like to call them. That insurance company is going to look at me and laugh if my field catches on fire from a wind turbine. Okay, that's not part of the deal. So who's going to pay for that? That's something that needs to be addressed in that ordinance. Crop damage needs to be covered by the wind company. If we move into past the fire aspect, let's look at the medical aspect. You have a full-time employee up in the wind turbine. He has a medical emergency. From what I've been told, they have radios or panic buttons or something like that. Now, in Yarmouth, Iowa, Washington Township, we, like every other volunteer department in Iowa, are struggling to find people. Okay. At any one time in Yarmouth during the day, I am the only available medical personnel because I farm full time and my shop is literally, what is it? About 2 miles maybe from Yarmouth. So
During the evening time, there's only 3 of us that are medically certified to arrive on scene and take care of a medical emergency before Minneapolis is dispatched and helps us. If you get somebody up in that tower with a medical emergency, now we need to have rope and confined space training. And per the National Fire Institute, 9 people are going to be needed to do a rope and confined space rescue. It's going to cost the county or the department between $17,000 and $25,000 to train those 9 individuals. Those 9 individuals now have to take 3 days off from work and go get the said training because they're volunteers. That's if you can find anybody who wants to climb a 600 and some foot turbine. I was a paratrooper, so I'd do it. I'm in, but, so, and then you look at the rescue kits. So each, depending on the turbine company, from what I found is they have rescue kits in each turbine. That's what they say. I'd like to see it myself. Each rescue kit is going to cost $10,000 per kit. One kit does 1 patient. So if you got a 2-person team up there, and let's say they don't listen to that lightning strike, move a mile away, and that turbine catches fire while they're up there and they can't get down. Now we have to do a SCBA confined space rescue and take 2 patients down the outside of the turbine while it's on fire. Now, I mean, I like to think of myself pretty brave, but that's even pushing it. 600 and some feet in the air while it's on fire. I mean, I'm not liking my odds. So, I mean, that's just some things we need to look at emergency medical wise. Because we don't have the personnel. I'm lucky if I get 4 people to show up to 1 fire, let alone 9. And then if you look at some other things that occurred to me, how am I doing on time?
Well, I actually started you a few seconds late, so you got about 20 seconds.
All right. The population in Yarmouth is getting a lot older. All right. It's an aging community. We're already stretched thin medical personnel wise. Now start adding infrasound and all those other medical issues that we're going to be dealing with and more medical calls. I mean, we're already stretched thin. So it's something we need to think about, and the ordinance needs to be amended to cover all the emergency expenses. That I'm done. Thank you.
Don Martin, 15 minutes.
Good evening, Council. I'm John Martin. I live in Winfield, and I'm going to address the air medical side of this. I've been teed up by the Aviation Fort Report Manager and EMS piece of it. So what you have there in front of you is the top document there. Those are that's my information paper provided. The second document in there is from a service out of Ohio, and I am in no way affiliated with them. And then you'll see the last page of that is out of the Part 135 FARs that will back up the requirements for flight planning for VFR. So I am not representing any air medical service specifically. I am a helicopter pilot with 35 years of experience, 5,000 hours. I've been in flying EMS for over 10. And I'm a float pilot, so I fly all over the country. But I did fly out of Fort Madison for approximately 8 years. So I'm very familiar with the flight paths and what we need to do here. So that being said, we're required to maintain, right now, we can fly with reported ceilings at 500 feet and 1,000 feet a night. And that's AGL, so that's above ground level. So all the altitudes I'm talking is above ground level, which coincides with the 750-foot towers wind turbines you're talking about. So just keep that in perspective. So I can accept a flight during the day at 500 feet above ground level, cloud deck. Okay. That puts me below those towers in my helicopter with a patient on board, paramedic, and a nurse. So right now I can fly pretty much unabated. We do have cell towers, but they're marked on the VFR sectional. Wind turbine farms are marked on the VFR sectionals, but it shows 1 or 2 towers and you have to kind of figure out where that area is that they're there. So there's a wind farm just north of Macomb, Illinois. If you haven't been over there yet, that has been populated in the last 5 years. And we used to fly to Springfield. Now we have to fly at an additional 600 feet higher than we normally would. So you take like this morning, and as the day progressed, the ceilings were pretty high, so we have to maintain 500 feet below the ceilings. So take today, for example, when let's say I'm doing a run from here to Iowa City, and I have to cross those wind turbine farms, I would probably not be able to accept that flight based on my planning for my en route, planning to maintain 500 feet below there. And then for us to maintain for obstacle clearance, you take that 700-foot tower. We're going to use that number, for example. I have to add 500 feet to that, then round it to the nearest 100 feet. And that is my FAA required obstacle clearance on objects on the ground. So now that ceiling and the obstacle clearance, my window is very small to a point where I probably will take it. And the effects is if I violate the FAA FARs, then I will lose my license. I'm under suspension or I get investigated. So we as pilots get investigated based on the regulations that are put forth in front of us. So as somebody else alluded, winds aloft. So winds on the ground. So I would tell you that winds aloft charts start at 2,500 feet above the ground, and they're in increments of 1,000 feet as you get higher. So the winds on the ground could be, let's say there's no wind, a calm day. Those wind turbines are, in fact, catching wind at 700 feet off the ground. The difference in the winds aloft can be as high as 20 to 30 to 50 knots at altitude. So if we're forced to fly higher, because a lot of us fly lower to mitigate the time, en route time, but if we start getting into 50 knot winds, 40 knot winds, even 20 knot winds, that adds from here to Iowa City, for example, it'll add 10 minutes to our flight. So if we're flying a critical patient or a stroke patient or somebody with a heart condition, the golden hour is there. And if we have to fly higher, it affects that. Now, everybody said, well, you can fly around it. Now we're adding time by flying around, because that's a pretty big footprint, what I've seen there. And I didn't speak at the Henry County. I provided them the same thing, but same thing. If we have to fly around what's in Des Moines County, if the wind turbines are in Henry County, we have to go further around if the ceilings are low. So that's something I want to bring to everybody's attention. We talked about landing zones, ground services. We have pre-designated landing zones. If those turbines are close to there, and I say 1.5 miles, that affects our ability to fly into those pre-designated landing zones, which forces the ground units to come to us. Right now, helicopters, our benefit is we land in a field. We land at a road intersection. We land wherever we're called for scene flights. But if we don't have the space, I will not land in a wind turbine farm. All them blades spinning, you're just not going to happen because there's not enough space in there. So now they're having to transport that patient to me, and that kind of lengthens the patient's ability to get to wherever we're supposed to take them to, whatever trauma it is, whether it's Springfield, Iowa City, or other places. So it'll affect our pre-designated landing zones in that. Helicopters, engine failures. So we auto rotate. We have one chance to get to the ground, and our auto rotation glide distance is pretty short, minimal. So we're coming straight. They're pretty safe as a whole. But let's say my engine fails and I'm over your wind farm. I may not have the glide path to go outside there. I'm going to have to put that thing, try to navigate in between two turbines to put the aircraft on the ground, to save me and the crew, or if I have a patient on board. So, or if you have a combative patient, because that happens too, then we have to land immediately because we can't have an unrestrained patient that's in the aircraft. So it limits us on how we can get to the ground and how soon we can execute that emergency. The general aviation piece of it has been talked about before, crop spraying and stuff like that. My understanding is that when they do those and they want to stop the wind turbines, you designate a time on today. So let's say it was scheduled for today. Well, the rains kept it from happening. So next time they can spray will probably be tomorrow. How much time do you have to let them know to stop those blades, to allow the low-level sprayings, whether it's a drone or a helicopter or or an airplane. I don't know. That's a question you probably should ask as you're doing that. And then they talk about the FAA has approved those sites there. Okay, here's what they're approving. They're approving that pre-designated navigational routes, IFR approaches, and departures in and out of the area. So they're probably not thinking about the general aviation, the EMS helicopter flying routine flights back and forth. It doesn't encroach on any airspace. So the closest airspace to us in this area is going to be Springfield, Illinois, is a Class Charlie. If it encroaches that airspace, that would be something. But the airspace here is Class Echo, so it doesn't affect that. We just have what that defines as our altitudes below cloud deck and above obstacle clearance. So I bring that to you just to consider these things. I'm not saying for or against it, but the effect you may have on air medical EMS is going to be a lot greater than you could imagine, because it will cause, it'll delay patient care in essence, what you're going to run into, because of where we're forced to fly, where we can't fly, whether we can accept the flight. Because like today with the ceilings that I was looking, they're about 2,000 feet. If I had to fly over the proposed wind turbine farm, I probably would have declined that flight. When on an ordinary day without those, I'd accept that flight all day long and get everybody where I need to go. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for your service, what you're doing for the county and everything like that. And just take this information. I am available for more questions after the fact. Please reach out to me if you need some clarity, because federal aviation lingo and what we do in flying is pretty foreign. It's a foreign language if you're not used to it. So by all means, please do that. But I thank you for your time. Do you have any questions now before I depart? I do not. I do not. I'm a float pilot, and I'm not going to say what company I'm for, but I fly over the Midwest. So tomorrow I'm headed to Kentucky. I'm headed down where the tornado went. Took out a couple of our aircraft down there, but yeah, flying around tower. I mean, flying in the mountains is like flying through wind turbine. If you ask me. Oh, I'm gonna give you a phone number. Anybody can take it down. 573-999-6387. I recommend you text me in case I'm on a flight. Then I can let you know that I'm unavailable. But by all means, please ask about that. And you guys have a tough job. That's all I want to say. But appreciate your time.
For all 3 minutes.
Pearl. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leah Pearl. I'm a local realtor with nearly a decade of experience helping families buy and sell homes right here in our community. I'm here tonight to share concerns about the proposed wind turbines and their likely impact on property values. Based not only on research, but also my professional understanding of how buyers make decisions in markets like ours. I hate public speaking, so apologies. I want to be clear, we don't have wind turbines in our area, in our direct area, so we don't have any local sales data to show the exact effects here. But based on multiple national studies and my experience in real estate, there is a strong reason to believe that turbines will cause a significant external obsolescence to nearby properties. External obsolescence is a decrease in property value caused by negative factors outside of the property itself. In this case, the introduction of industrial wind turbines brings potential nuisances like noise, visual disruption, and blinking lights. Factors that are out of the homeowner's control, but heavily influence buyers' perceptions and willingness to pay. I have three different I cited three different places that I found a little bit of information about property values and what it affects. It was really hard to find something because I just don't think that there's nothing to truly support it in our area. So a widely cited appraisal journal study, The Impact of Wind Turbines on Residential Property Values in Massachusetts, found value decreases 10 to 20% for homes near turbines, especially within a mile radius. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory reported losses between 6% and 15% within that same 1 mile range. A more recent Texas A&M University study from January 15th of this year reinforced these findings and added something crucial. Visibility matters just as much as distance. The study found that turbines can impact values up to 8.7 miles away if visible from said property. Key findings from this study are proximity, visibility, and turbine scale. Proximity, obviously, is the closer a home is to the turbines, the greater loss in value. Visibility, direct views of turbines result in more severe depreciation. Turbine scale, more and larger turbines increase negative market effects. As someone who regularly advises buyers and sellers, I can tell you homes near turbines will become harder to market, more likely to linger unsold, and often require price reductions to attract interest. In a community where equity is often tied up in family farms and lifelong homes, that's a very serious concern. In conclusions, we may not have turbines here yet, but the warning signs are clear. Introducing turbines could hurt property values, diminish quality of life, and affect financial futures for many. Thank you.
Emily Chaddock, 3 minutes.
Chaddock, C-H-A-D-D-O-C-K. Hello, my name is Emily Chaddock, and I've grown up in Des Moines County farming community since I was born. I remember my grandpa in Yarmouth feeding his cattle operation, planting crops, and harvesting, all the while making sure his family was taken care of. My parents ended up a mile down the road from them, and around 2008, the same company under another name came around, wanting to bring wind turbines in, and they were persistent. They said anything and everything to fluff up my family and make these look like $1 million would be coming our way in a short amount of time. At that point, the bald eagle migration was coming through, and that put their plans to a very quick halt. They quit because it's obviously illegal to kill them. No one knew then what we know now. The minimal amount of money to waive the illegality to kill certain wildlife and endangered species, the amount of prime farm ground needed to dig up to put a foundation in for a 650-foot wind turbine, and what happens to our quiet country roads and lifestyles when the amount of vehicles have to haul in equipment to put these up, let alone the equipment of the wind turbine itself. The destructions to neighboring farmland and property in the event of a natural disaster. Who's responsible when these fiberglass materials go on to another farm that's not under contract and they need to remove and replace all of their topsoil just to farm the next season, or the crops that will no longer be of good use for that season? The health hazards to both humans and animals from the vibrations in the ground causing heart issues, the unavoidable shadow flicker that increased seizures, and low frequency sound. The instruction of what future farmers are going to have to deal with for years to come. And I'm not talking about my generation. I'm talking about my nephew, his friends, and everyone younger than us who didn't sign up for something like this and don't understand what's going on. 60% of the current easements are with one family, the next 27% are with 3 families, and the remaining 13 are with 9. This does not cover the rest of the legacies or communities of families that have built legacies for their future generations. And I don't use the word legacy lightly. They should not be responsible for someone else's irresponsibility and greed. Sure, we all love money, but we're talking about extracting a crucial amount of prime ground to farm.
family legacies who've worked so hard to make sure these younger generations are taken care of. Farming is something families believe in, and I know people in town might not understand, but this is our livelihood. And we as a county need to remember this does not just affect the ones signing up, but everyone around them. Thank you for your time.
Laura Blanchard, 6 minutes.
I'd like to start out by thanking the Board of Supervisors for their willingness to hold an evening work session and allowing for people like myself to attend. I'm speaking today as a proponent of wind energy. However, my desire to attend and voice my opinion tonight is largely due to broader environmental and health concerns impacting Iowa citizens and our environment. Opponents of wind turbines have stated concerns regarding negative impacts to both humans and the environment. And while some of these claims are refutable, I do appreciate the opportunity to present environmental concerns to the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors. I too have many concerns regarding Iowa's human and environmental health. Currently, Iowa has the second highest rate of cancer in the country. Additionally, our cancer rates are increasing at a faster rate than any other state. Experts believe that environmental exposures and some agricultural practices are linked to these increasing cancer rates. Pesticide use and poor water quality due to agricultural runoff are just two examples of suspected contributing factors, but never wind turbines. Over the past couple of months, I've struggled to understand the intent focus on the impacts of wind energy rather than Iowa's pervasive health and environmental issues as a whole. I have asked about this on social media when discussing wind energy, but have never received a response. Focusing pushback on an energy source whose negative impacts pale in comparison to the aforementioned contributing factors has me questioning the overall intent of the concern for human health, wildlife, and the environment. I do believe that Iowa has coinciding human health and environmental crises taking place and that they both deserve immediate attention. I do believe that this topic as a whole should serve as a segue to a larger conversation regarding county conservation, waterways, and agricultural practices under the Board of Supervisors jurisdiction. Our board could play a much larger role in improving the health and well-being of the people of Des Moines County and our environment than they have historically. For example, our board is just 1 out of 15 boards in Iowa that have chosen not to adopt the livestock master matrix. Inaction on this issue places us in the vast minority of counties. That being said, any action against wind energy based on environmental impact would appear very misguided. Discussing the proximal impacts of wind turbines without also mentioning the proximal impacts of other rural practices is misleading. Environmental impacts from wind turbines are lower than other sources and certainly lower than other urban or rural practices. For instance, cats and buildings are the #1 and #2 detrimental factors to birds. Wind turbines rank 10th. A lot of people have brought up legacies. I often think when I think about legacies, I think about my daughter. I think about what she will be left with, what the world will look like, what the earth will be like when she grows older, when she's my age and beyond. I think that while we do not view wind energy the same way, that my concerns echo a lot of the concerns of those in attendance today. And I think that this is a great conversation starter for a lot of practices. But wind turbines are definitely not at the top of my list of concerns when I think about legacy and our own health and the environment. Thank you.
And Denny, 6 minutes.
Denny, Denney. Good evening, gentlemen. We appreciate taking your time out of your schedule to have this meeting tonight. I'm Dan Denny, lifelong resident of Yarmouth area. I'm here to support the windmill project for the Washington Pleasant Grove Township area. I've looked from my farm at Wood Turbine, north of New London, for many years and constantly see it turning. Driven by it for years and have scouted the farm ground around the windmill, and it hasn't bothered me or many others. One thing we all realize is the wind is always blowing in our area. I feel the windmill project in our area will bring a huge economic boost to revenue to Des Moines County as we continue to grow in population. We need more electricity to be put on the power grid. Why not have the residents in the county receive these benefits from the wind farm rather than having a big corporate electric company build more plants and keep all their earnings to themselves and build in areas that not will help us in the county? My biggest concern is this moratorium that gets passed and we shut down a windmill is what's next. If I want to build a cattle confinement or a hog building on my farm as a property owner, I should have the right to build what I want and follow the rules and regulations to do so. Will I be down here going through work sessions and have social media groups not wanting these built either? My solution to this is let's go to countywide zoning. Let everyone that lives in rural Des Moines County follow the same rules. If you want to build a chicken coop, do a garage, or remodel in your house, let's have the rules and regulations for all the citizens of Des Moines County to follow. And I guarantee most of the rural residents will not like that at all. I agree with the wind ordinance needs reworked, but we can't have 52, 80-foot setbacks and rules on CSR ratings on where they can be built, as there's some common ground that everyone can agree on. This project could be a benefit to all of us in the county. I feel we should all take the invite to the Howard County from the last work session in there and check out what they've done for their wind farms and residents and how it's working out for them. The more informed, the better we are. Thanks for your time. Have a good evening.
Andrew, 3 minutes.
Good evening, supervisors. Thanks for taking the time this evening to hear the residents' complaints, issues, support, all the different things. I'm a business rep with Operating Engineers. I also serve as the president of Southeast Iowa Building Trades. Our men and women that we represent build these things all over. We've had almost 20 years of experience. Closest one to this area is a Bishop Hill Wind Farm. It's been going for just under 20 years. We erected it. We've done maintenance on it. You know, and I'm constantly asking as we send over members to switch out blades or whatever the case is, you know, what is the feedback? There's a little place, little filling station, it's called, gas station that serves lunch. You know, we'd go in there, get lunch when they're building it, all the workers would, you know, what's the feedback? You're in there table to table with the farmers that, you know, supported it and were against it, you know, and 20 years later, what's the feedback? And it said the biggest criticism was the people that were opponents at the time said, I wish I would have participated. And I don't make no money off of whether this goes or not. I was here at the work session speaking in opposition to some of the strict rules that you guys actually put in place. I think it's one of the more stricter ordinances from Clinton down to Lee County. But I respected what you put in place to protect the taxpayers. One thing that, you know, and I spoke about it then was, you know, we've got to have a serious conversation about power in this country. You know, sometimes speakers get up here and almost like it's a debate of whether we just stick with coal. In the last 10 years, my members have tore down seven coal plants up and down this river. That argument's gone. The people that decide how we're going to generate our power going forward have already made that decision long before any politics become a mix in this. Coal's gone. You could look at natural gas, but you know, the reality is, who wants to stand up here and give easement to a natural gas pipeline to go across the property to get to that power plant? You know, we've seen how that plays in Iowa, and it's not very favorable. So then you look at solar. I've been plenty solar hearings where they're not that popular because they change the landscape as well. So one thing I will encourage the board to do is don't look at it as, hey, we just want to, it's easy to demonize wind turbines now. Let's have an open conversation of, you know, if we're going to make this a popularity contest, then what do we want to see in Des Moines County as power generation? Because we're to the point right now that we're passing up economic development projects less than an hour here because we don't have the power on the grid to supply them. That's important to the next generation that's going to live in Des Moines County. And I'm really surprised that the Economic Development Group isn't down here advocating for that because it's as much their problem as is any of ours. So I appreciate your time tonight. Hope you can. There's a lot of things like the blinking lights at night. There's systems that can be put in place to alleviate that come on when there's aircraft in the area. So there are some things that could probably be manageable, make this maybe a little more appealing. Probably won't make everybody happy with it in their backyard, but work with the developer because we need these kind of developments and investment in Des Moines County. So thank you.
Upton, 3 minutes.
Greetings and good evening. Tom Upton, Minneapolis, Iowa. Don't have a lot of notes. In fact, I have zero. I just want to say this is about stewardship. We have heard a lot of good things on both sides of this issue. And I'm sure that we all care about it. I know that the good Lord has given us a beautiful countryside, beautiful resources, the Mississippi River, the different ecosystems that we're concerned about. It was about stewardship. We got to take care of what we've got. We don't want to ruin what we've got. We don't want to ruin the environment and leave, and I'll use that same word, legacy. Either way on this, you know, what are we going to leave for the kids? And what do we have for 64 years later after signing a contract for something? Yeah, I'm an ecologist. I've been a tree hugger before it was even a term. And I care about the environment. I want a good environment. I want to leave a good environment behind me. And just don't want to see us make the wrong mistake. It's about stewardship. The good Lord has given us some good resources. Let's protect them. Thank you very much.
London? Burdett. Sorry. D-U-R-D-E-N.
You're welcome. Thank you, gentlemen, for hearing both sides of the story. I am married to a man who was a farmer, his family farm, and we are from the Mount Union area, which is close to Yarmouth. I've noticed that the companies are different companies, but they wanted 650-foot towers. In Des Moines County, this new company is asking for 750 feet. Quite an increase. As far as Googling, I Googled a long time ago what were the companies that were involved, and a lot of the company ties were with like China and Russia and Saudi Arabia. Some of the problems were fire hazard and towers falling down. And I believe Greenfield was one of the towns in Iowa that had the disaster where the towers fell down recently. There are cases that our Attorney General is fighting from a turbine company that had changed hands where the blades were left out and no one claimed it and they wouldn't clean up their mess. The possibility of having the company change hands is probably more likely than not. I'm 5 feet tall. Okay, I bring that up is because what's underground, I believe I heard it was 11 feet. The companies don't have to take care of that. 5 foot versus 11 foot, what's underground? They're using concrete. They're using copper and all kinds of materials that they're going to leave in your ground. That's not good stewardship. being married to a man whose family farm, that wouldn't be good stewardship. Access Energy is who we have for our electricity, and I spoke to them. They don't get any power from the New London thing, from that tower, which is not too far from me. They get it from Northwest Missouri, and turbine power is not as effective. Coal is effective. And the reason why we don't have the coal factories is some of the legislation attack the coal companies. I point out that there are other sources. These are not wind, like what we used to have on the farm that was metal. These are not that. They are not effective. And according to what I've done with talking to people on Access Energy and doing some research, they are less effective because they change. I would encourage you to put a moratorium. Boundaries should be property, because if something happens in Yarmouth, it's going to get me. And if it's fiberglass, it's not going to help. Thank you, gentlemen.
Since I was up here, did anybody come in late that I didn't get signed up? Make sure that I'm not missing somebody that wanted to speak. All right, well, thank you to everybody, and that wraps up everybody that I have signed.
Can I say something? I want to thank everybody. I never been in a meeting that was 2.5 hours long, and everyone's attention to hold on.
Everybody was a lot of good information tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.